Shana Tova. Good Yontif. I still think it's a good Yontif crowd.
I tend to think so too.
Last year was an incredible time to be a Dodgers fan. Even people who were not baseball fans were walking around on a season-long high. People all over the world wanted to get in on our success, to link themselves somehow to the Los Angeles Dodgers. This year, it's different. It's frustrating and maybe even a little embarrassing sometimes to listen to people talk smack about our team. The allure of the team that felt like a group of superheroes seems to have vanished, and with it, all of the fair weather fans. Well, what makes it depressing at times like these is that for some of us, being a fan is a crucial part of our identity. There are really two paths we can take at such times. One is to somehow keep the faith. Ted Lasso, the completely ill-equipped coach the management of a soccer team brought in just so they would lose, and lose epically, posted a sign in the locker room, "Believe." The show inspired people throughout the world to hold onto their faith in dark times. And in the movie Fever Pitch, there's a great moment when we hear described what it means to be a fan. You have a lyrical soul, Drew Barrymore says. You can love under the best and worst of circumstances. The second path is to walk away, to give up. While the Dodgers can still make a comeback, or we can try again next year, they're going to make a comeback. We have a problem in our Jewish community, and it is dire. So many in the Jewish community have opted to give up on our team. And in so doing, Jews have forgotten a piece of our very soul. We didn't do this deliberately, and I am not here to place blame. We have been through an enormous amount in our history: persecution, expulsion, hatred. It was natural for us to try to live lives that didn't include those things, to want so desperately to live as others did. Post-Holocaust America became a place where Jews were no longer excluded from country clubs, from professional organizations, from high society. Prior to that, Jews were given failing grades in medical school, had to work twice as hard as anyone else to prove themselves. Jews opened separate country clubs because we weren't allowed into the ones that already existed. And this happened in all facets of life. But the tides turned. The world had a guilty conscience. The world knew it had failed on a profound moral level. The ugliness and the horror of the Holocaust was clear to all decent people, and the world fell over itself to prove its virtue. And Jews capitalized on this. The American society was built on education, hard work, resilience, perseverance, and excellence. We knew how to do that, and we excelled. Once we had a way in, we took it and we ran with it. What we didn't realize was that we were living in a mirage, and the shame the world felt after the Holocaust was not sustainable. We didn't notice that in order to fit seamlessly into society, we had to check parts of our identity at the door. We couldn't look too much like, well, Jews. The Reform movement bought into all of this at its origin. We took off our kippot when we entered the sanctuary, just like our Protestant friends. We removed Hebrew from the service, reading the Union prayer book nearly all in English, except maybe for the Shema, which allowed ethical monotheism to be the central focus of Reform Judaism, just like in the Christian world. We discarded what we felt was esoteric and antiquated ritual, and even moved Shabbat to Sunday to better mimic the flow of the first the German and then the American society. Now, I believe in a Judaism that is evolving. I believe that revelation did not stop somewhere in the 18th century, but that we continue to feel and hear God's presence and grow as a Jewish community to this day. I believe in the doctrine of informed choice, whereby your rabbis and cantors and educators teach authentic Judaism, And you get to decide for yourselves what your religious practice will be and what your relationship to God will be. Because I believe that ultimately, even in Orthodox and conservative Judaism, this is what people do. We make choices for ourselves no matter what our rabbis tell us, and this is healthy, independent thinking. But we did major harm to ourselves, to the Jewish world, in not recognizing that we were making a giant sacrifice, one that would have generational repercussions. In struggling to assimilate, we paid a huge price. In working to live in a society where we were just like everyone else, we cut off that piece of our soul. The fact is, we are not like everyone else. The Jewish people is unique and beautifully so. It is impossible to really explain what it means to be a part of the Jewish people. We're not a culture. Judaism is infused with many of those, from Eastern European Ashkenazi to German to Persian to Sephardic to American, Los Angeles Jewish culture to New York Jewish culture to Boston, the Midwest. We have things in common, but these cultures are quite different. And if you have ever come from or traveled to a different Jewish community, you know. We are not a religion, a dogma. The people in this room hold wildly different ideas about God, Torah, how to practice the rituals and customs of Judaism, even your rabbis. And that didn't start with the Enlightenment or coming to America. These arguments about Jewish life and practice are codified in our sacred texts, the Torah, Talmud, Midrash, commentaries, and we have always loved to argue vociferously with one another about what God really wants from us. We're not a race or a bloodline, or else it wouldn't be possible to convert to Judaism. We're not a tribe or a series of tribes, although really our history did take us through a time in which we were. We are different from anything that exists in the world. We are a people, an interconnected people with an interconnected Jewish soul. And that soul is built from the beginning of Jewish recorded time out of loyalty and longing. What is it that the entirety of the Jewish people longs for? What is it that draws us together through all of time and history? The object of this loyalty and longing for the Jew is Israel. You cannot separate the Jew and the Jewish soul from Israel. Let me pause here and make a request. If you agree with the words that follow, I'm always happy to talk with you. But if you do not, I hope you will come in and discuss it. Rabbi Rosenstein made a beautiful plea yesterday that we listen to one another, and I hope that these words of mine will inspire conversation between us. Please take me up on this. Matti Friedman tells the story of Leonard Cohen, 39 years old, already famous, and deeply unhappy. The electrifying and complicated poet and composer found himself at one of the darkest moments of his personal life, and it was there, in 1973, as if driven by some unseen force, that he left his home on the Greek island of Hydra when Egypt attacked Israel on Yom Kippur. He went with no plan, but somehow he went to join his people. The story is an extraordinary one that Cohen himself rarely spoke about, but that Matti Friedman captured in pieces of Cohen's writing and tales from others who were there. Nearly a decade before his journey, Cohen was seen to have a love-hate relationship with his Judaism and Israel, and remarked often disparagingly about the Jewish community. Even so, even with the bitterness and sometimes downright contempt he seemed to feel for the Jewish world, something called to him in that moment of the Yom Kippur War. In those days, a distress call from Israel affected some like the bat signal of the comics or Susan's horn in Narnia, Friedman recalls. It was in a time before Israel was today's divisive political issue. There was only one choice between the death camps and the fight for survival. So he went, and he sang, and he sat with troops and battalions, and he poured out his wrestling soul, perhaps born, though he did not know it, from the ancient struggles of his ancestor Jacob, who ran away in the night, broken and yet reborn as Yisrael. Or Jonah, the prophet whose fear and pain sends him running away into the belly of a whale rather than to answer God's call. Cohen pulled no punches, and yet he willed protection of his people with his song. May the spirit of this song, may it rise up pure and free. May it be a shield for you, a shield against the enemy. Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha, he was channeling. May God bless you and keep you. His music aided those fighting the enemy and also those battling themselves. His wisdom sourced so deeply from something only poetry and song could explain, and it helped and it healed. He explained his approach to the disaster of the world as he saw it. My own tradition, he said, the Hebraic tradition, suggests that you sit next to disaster and lament. You don't avoid the situation, you throw yourself into it. He is right. We need to sit next to the catastrophe of this world, to throw ourselves into it, to experience it. That's why his soul brought him to Israel. It was only by throwing himself into the complexity, the love and the rage and the war and the beauty that he found the deepest truths. Cohen did it as a poet and musician would, but the story belongs to all of us. The journey, the unbreakable connection to this land, to our ancient history, this is a piece of all of us, whether we want it to be or not. Now, the Jews are not alone in their longing for the land. Countless cultures and stories show the sacred bond people feel with home. From Scarlett's Terra in Gone with the Wind to the mystical Field of Dreams. This visceral attachment appears in real life and art alike. American Indians hold that the land is sacred. Conservative farmers and left-wing environmentalists in Idaho work to protect the land together. We see this focus on land in modern tales like Yellowstone, or in Marvel's Asgard, or Princess Leia's Alderaan. The universality of this connection makes the love of land both timely and deeply human. We understand this connection. And yet, some of us have failed to understand just how important this same story is to the Jewish people, to us, to our own living, breathing Judaism, to our own souls. This connection to Israel is everywhere in every place throughout our sacred texts. Do you know that you cannot find a single Torah portion without some connection to the land of Israel? Either we're coming from there, or we're going there, or we're yearning for that place. I looked. Last year, my childhood rabbi, Rabbi Eli Hersher, challenged us to find a portion without a reference to Israel. So, having learned and studied with him since the 10th grade, I did my homework, and I searched. There isn't one. Every Jewish story sources from that place. So why do Jews have to make things so complicated? Even our leadership seems to be unable to understand the difference between the land of Israel and the politics of Israel. Whereas I do not want to place blame for how we got into this mess, I would say that our leaders now are at fault, and they are steering us in the wrong direction. Just this past Friday night, Temple Judea hosted the president of Hebrew Union College, Dr. Andrew Rayfeld. I believe that he does as he says, love Israel, and that his connection runs deep. But he, along with so much of the Reformed Jewish leadership, is profoundly mistaken in his thinking. He seems embarrassed by the flaws of Israel, and he is pained that the younger generation does not have the automatic love of Israel that we once did. I believe that his ideology stems from genuinely trying to save the Jewish world, and I do not attribute his wrongness to his heart, which I believe is in the right place. But it wounds me to say that his words and the words and actions of other Reformed Jewish leaders are dangerous, and they're giving fodder to the enemy. Let me start where I believe he's right. We have to be in the conversation with our young people who declare themselves to be non-Zionists or anti-Zionists. We cannot throw our youth out of the movement, out of our synagogues, out of our spaces of conversation. But nobody, except maybe an extreme on the other side to which we also should not bow, nobody is saying that. But these leaders suggest that because of Israel's flaws, to be a non- or anti-Zionist is a legitimate Jewish approach. My friends, it is not. It does not matter what Israel's flaws are. You cannot divorce Judaism from Israel. In a time of war, our movement's leadership seems to have forgotten its primary responsibility, standing with its family. The Union for Reform Judaism's own statements show a pattern of criticizing Israel more than supporting it by a 2-to-1 ratio. In times of peace, such a critical stance might be defensible as the movement's prophetic voice. But Israel is not at peace. Israel is at war for its survival, and our family is under attack. What our movement is doing is dangerous. Perhaps not deliberately so, but nevertheless, it gives Hamas a reason to hold out. Why would Hamas surrender or release hostages when they see the largest Jewish denomination in America constantly undermining Israeli resolve? I do believe, from my many conversations with my colleagues, that most Reform Judaism, most Reform clergy are Zionists. But so many of them are aiding and abetting the enemy with this misplaced virtue signaling. When people are getting their news from TikTok and Instagram with emotions flying, when the New York Times publishes articles with outright lies that go viral, only to issue retractions that only 1% of those people ever see, we have a huge problem. It is only exacerbated by our leadership declaring that these are valid viewpoints. One of the greatest problems in this world originates from the legacy media, built on the swirling foundation of conflict, but also embedded, as the world has been since the beginning of time, with anti-Semitism. Natan Sharansky defines anti-Semitism as the 3 Ds: delegitimization, demonization, and double standards. And each of these is categorically used against the Jewish state. It's easy to hate the one Jewish state in the world because we have always been the world's scapegoat, and the Holocaust did not change that. The conversation with those who claim to be non- or anti-Zionist needs to start with the reality on the ground, one which we will not get from the legacy media or TikTok or Instagram. Read instead the Free Press, the Future of Jewish blog. Listen to Chaviv Redigor's podcast. Listen to Dan Sinor, Brett Stevens, Mati Friedman. These people have different and sometimes opposite political opinions, and yet their thinking comes from the facts on the ground. Here are some of the outright lies that are fueling the energy of the anti-Zionists. Number 1, the settlers are responsible for destroying the aid trucks. My friends, there are no settlers in Gaza. And the settlers elsewhere are not comprehensively destroying aid trucks. Not only did Israel completely disengage from Gaza in 2005, but they literally dug up the bones of dead Jews so there would be no Jewish presence in Gaza. Aid trucks have been destroyed or captured by Hamas with a complicit United Nations looking the other way. Hamas does not want aid getting to the Gazan people because the world favors them if they can show the Palestinian people to be starving. If you are actually pro-Palestinian lives, you must reject these tactics by the warped Hamas, which will kill all of its own people in order to kill all the Jews. The hostages in Gaza are proof, and they are a wound in the heart of the Jewish people, one that our enemies use against us. Lie number 2, that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. This is actually absurd. The IDF risks everything to protect the other side's civilians. The techniques they perform actually put themselves, the IDF and Israeli citizens, at risk and peril, and the pains they take to protect others is downright Herculean. The percentage of civilian to combat death toll in the Gaza war is the lowest the world has ever seen. The civilian death toll in Germany during World War II was somewhere between 1.5 and 3 million. Were the Allies committing genocide of Germans? It is ridiculous to say that Israel is committing genocide. No genocidal army warns before strikes or evacuates the enemy's sick children for care. Israel fights with a restraint that is unparalleled in this world. Make no mistake, lies are coming from all sides. Jews are only considered acceptable on the far right if they conform to a certain ideology about Western civilization and profess to be a part of Judeo-Christian values. Anyone who questions that or goes all in with their Judaism is discarded and demeaned, and Reform Jews are not spoken of fondly, to say the least. Joshua Hoffman, who writes the blog Future of Jewish, says, Jews are always on trial. And then there are the conspiracy theories from the right. The latest is that Israel ordered the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I'm not even going to elevate that with a response. Others on the right also link Israel with genocide, and the fringes of both parties are proving to be continuously more dangerous. These lies put us at tremendous disadvantage. A lie gets around the world twice before the truth has the chance to put its pants on. We know. So these lies seep into mainstream ideology and ensure that even Jews feel horror at what is going on in Israel. They've driven a wedge between us and our own identity because you cannot fully embrace what it means to be a Jew without your connection to the land of Israel. You cannot fully embrace Judaism without being a Zionist. So these lies are in fact keeping us from our full selves. What is a Zionist? We have to define the term, and it cannot mean multiple things to different people if we are to have any rational discourse. If you believe that the Jewish people has a right to self-determination as a sovereign nation state in our ancient homeland, you are a Zionist. It means that the Jews have a place to live, to determine our own identity and destiny. It does not mean that others cannot live in that place. It does not mean that others cannot have their own homeland. It means that the Jews also deserve to survive in ours. Former left-wing member of the Knesset, Einat Wilf, defines Zionism as a liberation movement of an indigenous people returning home. Furthermore, Zionism has a story to tell that is not only about Jews and for Jews. It has the power to inspire people and peoples to great acts of daring and sacrifice. Zionism tells a simple story. We are not destined to be victims. A history of marginalization, humiliation, discrimination, persecution, massacres, and even genocide can be transcended. A people, no matter how downtrodden, can find within themselves the power to change their future. We may not be like everyone else in the world, but our story can be a guide for civilization and moral decency, for the triumph of good over the terrible forces of human hatred and evil. Zionism is about all of this, but it is also about something more, something personal, something that drove Leonard Cohen, among so many others, to find themselves in that place. It is about love and hope and memory and transcendence, and it occupies an inextricable and very deep place within Jewish consciousness. It is the most vital issue of our time that we reclaim Israel as the primary source of Jewish identity. The world has to know how deep our story runs. The direction we face when we pray, east to Jerusalem. Every single time you walk into this very sanctuary, you are connecting yourself to Israel. And nearly every synagogue faces east to pray or has a mizrach on the wall that visualizes the direction of east. Our 3 pilgrimage holidays, Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuot, are tied to the harvest cycles of that land, not the one we happen to be in. And when we get married, we break a glass to remember our yearning for wholeness in our ancient land, the destruction of the ancient temple. Jewish life and history is anchored in that place. There is a meta connection well beyond what we experience here and now. If I forget you, O Jerusalem, may my right hand wither. Anti-Zionism and the attempt to destroy Israel attacks our existence as human beings. It also attacks the deepest part of the soul of the Jew. If there is another way to destroy Judaism besides killing Jews, it is by forcing us to become less Jewish. The world's anti-Zionism forces some of us to make horrible choices, to check our particularism at the door in order to be a part of everyone else. It is a manipulative technique with a deliberate goal of destroying the Jewish people. Anti-Semitism has taken many forms, and this is but another one of them. We see this wildly on college campuses, and it is a substantial reason for why our Jewish youth sees anti-Zionism as a legitimate choice for themselves. Now, it must be said that saying I hate Netanyahu does not make you an anti-Zionist. I am for coexistence between Jews and Palestinians doesn't make you an anti-Zionist. My heart breaks for the children of Gaza doesn't make you an anti-Zionist. However, when you undermine the right of a land and people to defend itself from existential threats, when you don't see that our enemies are interested not in a similar homeland for themselves, but instead the destruction of the Jewish state from the river to the sea, or when only Gazan children make your heart break, but the rape and violent, unspeakable horrors of October 7th have completely left your mind as if they didn't exist or were even justified, this makes you an anti-Zionist and an anti-Semite. It is vital to the future that we allow the complexity of the Zionist discourse, that we are allowed to discuss and argue and disagree about the political choices of this nation. But it is also vital that we start from the point of view of being Zionists. Only then can we discuss and argue and fight over the appropriate path for this Jewish nation, how to protect its values and its goodness. This is urgent. Anti-Zionism is no longer a fringe ideology. It's a mainstream hostility that questions the very right of Jews to belong anywhere, let alone in our ancestral home. To withstand that pressure, Jews need a deeper connection than political arguments or talking points. We need belonging. We need to understand. with unshakable certainty that the hills of Judea, the stones of Jerusalem, and the shores of the Mediterranean are not just someone else's headlines, but our inheritance, our story, our home. To love Israel doesn't mean we don't see flaws. Are there mistakes made? Oh yes, of course there are. It is ludicrous to suggest that we anchor our relationship in this nation in expecting perfection. There are human beings running the country, for God's sake, but Israel has a loyalty to our ancient system of values and ideals. It will right itself when it goes astray. Do not mistake moral outrage at Israel's mistakes for moral clarity. So how are we going to fix this? First, Dr. Rayfield does indeed have it right when he implores us to have the hard conversations. We must unequivocally support dialogue and open, honest conversation. We must reject the violent shutdown of speech and learn to argue respectfully and responsibly. Second, we must seek and find truth. Fight the tendency of our modern society to toss away facts in favor of emotion. We can feel pain for everyone's suffering, but it is crucial that we solve that pain by placing responsibility at the feet of those who can change it. If Hamas laid down weapons, there would be no more war. If Israel laid down weapons right now, there would be no more Israel. Third, chazak ve'ematz, be strong and of good courage. Get broader shoulders. We learn in middle school that it's important for us not to worry so much about what others think. Recognize that Israel doesn't need the global community to love it. Stop worrying about what France and Portugal and Belgium and Slovenia thinks. No other nation cares so much about what other nations think of it. Israel has a right to behave in the best interests of its citizens, both Jews and Arabs and everyone else who lives there. Let them. Fourth, do everything that we can to support candidates right or left who are pro-Israel. This is in our American best interest. Israel needs us to defend her, but American Jews need Israel to be a safe refuge from the anti-Semitism that is going on right here, a place in the world where we will always have agency. And America needs Israel as a defender of democracy in one of the most dangerous parts of the world. Don't let anti-Zionists into office to threaten our very identity and physical safety. Number 5, go to Israel. Teach yourself and teach your children your beautiful Jewish history. Let go of your need to make Israel only the story of its modern politics. Walk the steps our ancestors walked. Find out for yourself about the soul connection of it all, the intellectual and academic achievements and the morality of this extraordinary place. And more than anything else, teach the people around you how deeply Israel is a part of our Jewish story. Everything we are, everything we know, everything that is deep and enduring about the Jewish people can be seen in our connection to our land. It is our history. It is our holiness. It is our identity. There's a beautiful passage from the Talmud. When Rabbi Akiva and his colleagues saw the ruins of the temple, the others wept. But Rabbi Akiva laughed. "Why do you laugh?" they asked. He said, "Because if the prophecy of destruction has come true, surely the prophecy of redemption will also come true. May it come speedily in our time, and may we always remember, never underestimate the ever-unfolding miracle of Israel." Shana Tova.